evening. By way of background, this workshop is part of a series of events that the Faith Community Working Group will be doing in partnership with the Montgomery County Police Department, our various branches of local government, faith leaders, caseworkers, educators, academics, and concerned citizens like yourselves to build awareness about the various threats we face in public safety, including the threat of violent extremism specifically. Violent extremism we define simply as ideologically motivated violence that furthers political goals. You will hear more about this in our presentation today by Mr. Irfan Saeed. And as we build awareness and stay focused on these issues, we hope to attract and cultivate the experience and expertise within our communities to intervene with at-risk individuals, and hope that we deter them from choosing a path of violence. This will be us pooling community resources to develop innovative, compassionate, and informed solutions to preventing violence. We have a very busy schedule this evening, so without further delay, I will hand over the floor to our facilitator this evening, Reverend Randy Lord-Wilkinson, who is a great partner and a friend in our efforts to build this kind of interfaith and multi-ethnic collaboration across this county on issues of mutual concern like we have today. Randy Lord-Wilkinson began his ministry as a rector of Church of Ascension in the fall of 2007 after serving parishes in both Massachusetts and Washington State. He earned his bachelor's degree from West Virginia University, and he received a master's in divinity from Harvard. This is his first year as a convener of the Gaithersburg Interfaith Alliance. Please join me in welcoming Randy.
Well, I'm really excited about this evening. This began as a conversation that Hedieh and I had shortly after we met about a year ago. Wouldn't it be cool if? So you're going to be mesmerized and a little disturbed, actually, about what you're going to hear tonight from these experts. So one of the ground rules is that as we are on a tight schedule, we're covering a lot of ground. For every speaker except for Chief Manger, there will be a question and answer period, and I will also give the speakers a 5-minute warning. This is a meditation chime. So if I do that and everybody falls into silence, including the speaker, it's okay. Allow it to happen. So, Chief Manger, I met at an iftar dinner for the first time because I hadn't been in trouble before. But he's quite an extraordinary individual and a great asset to our community and our county. He's been the Chief of Police of Montgomery County, Maryland since February of 2004. He began his law enforcement career in 1977 with the Fairfax County, Virginia Police Department. He rose to the ranks to become Chief of Police in 1998. During his tenure there, Chief Manger received numerous awards, including the Silver Medal of Valor. His commitment to the highest ethical standards for policing and his enactment of new policies to increase departmental accountability earned him significant recognition from the community, including the Fairfax County Human Rights Commission Award for Outstanding Contributions and the NAACP's Community Service Leadership Award. In 2012, Chief Manger was inducted into the Montgomery County Human Rights Hall of Fame. Chief Manger, you're on. By the way, all these bios are on the internet.
Thank you, Randy. So Harvard Divinity School, you couldn't get into a good school, huh?
They were desperate.
It's a joke. All right, here's another joke. The title of this seminar, Internet Safety Seminar, Are Your Kids in Danger? All right, and the answer to that is no, they're not. Unless they have a phone, unless they have access to the internet. So if your child does not have a phone and does not have access to the internet ever, then they're not really in any danger as far as internet safety goes. But my guess is that most of your children, and I do see that there's some students here, and welcome, and I will tell the students right now, I'm going to talk as the police chief for a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to finish up talking as a dad. You're not going to like the part where I talk as a dad. I'll just warn you for that right now. So we've got a lot of subject matter experts here, and you're going to get a lot of great information. What they're going to tell, I love the way you described it. You'll be mesmerized and what was it? Mesmerized and scared? Mesmerized, disturbed. Yes, mesmerized and disturbed. I love that, and I think that's a great way to describe what's going to happen here tonight. So one of the things you're going to learn tonight is that you can't really be sure who you're communicating with on the internet. We had a case recently where a girl was Skyping with a boy that she knew and had an interest in, and he talked her into taking some of her clothes off. And the next day, she got an email from someone that she didn't know, saying that, and the email contained a little attachment with the video of her with her shirt off, saying that if you don't want this video to be put on YouTube, if you don't want it spread everywhere, anywhere, then you can wire $1,000 to this address, and that'll keep you from being embarrassed. My son plays Minecraft, which I don't understand. But one day, and he told me that he was playing with his friends. And my son's not just about to turn 12, and he would. One day, I heard him playing Minecraft, and all of a sudden, I heard him scream and then start to get upset, and almost start to cry. And so I ran into the kitchen and I said, "What's the matter?" He goes, "This guy took all my points, or he took something. I don't know what he took. But he took something away, and he had tricked my son into thinking that he was helping him, and then he stole something." And anybody that plays Minecraft probably knows what I'm talking about. But all I knew was, here's my son in tears over a Minecraft game. I said, "Well, who is this guy?" I said, "I thought you were playing with Kevin. I thought you were playing with your classmates in school." He said, "Well, no, there's a lot of people that play in this." And I look and I see that he has been communicating back and forth with this guy, and having no idea who he is. Well, we put an end to that very quickly, because you never know who you're talking to. And what can happen is that you get to know somebody. You exchange. Let's say you exchange messages over the course of a couple of weeks. This guy helps you, as your teammate in Minecraft, and all of a sudden he says, "Hey, why don't we go offline and email me this, or contact me, in this manner." And all of a sudden you've got a 12-year-old boy who's now talking to a stranger, and we all know where that can go. I got a call last week from a man who was blessed with triplets, 3 girls, and if you want to call that a blessing, I guess the only thing worse could have been worse. He could have been 3 boys. So his wife had posted a lovely picture of their daughters on her Facebook, and at some point someone brought to his attention a mass email that someone had sent out saying, we had triplets, we're struggling for money, if you can please, help us, send money to this address. It was a picture of his babies, and this message was coming from someone who was clearly trying to get money from folks using the picture of these 3 beautiful girls. If you think that your Facebook is secure, first of all, those of you that have Facebook, that's so 2012. It's Tumblr, it's Instagram, but for those of us that do have Facebook, and you think it's well, only my friends can see what's on my Facebook, think again. And you really need to make sure that you've put all the security controls in place that you need to, because what you find out is that a friend of your friend might be able to come and see your Facebook. And you're going to hear all about these things and in much more detail. And the last thing I'll tell you, well, the second last thing I'll tell you as a police chief, is that the laws in this country have not caught up with all of the evil things that are being done with the internet. And I can tell you that very often the folks that are perpetrating these terrible things are sitting at a computer in China, in Russia, in Africa, in South America. They're not even in the United States. And there's very little cooperation that goes on internationally to help with these investigations. So don't rely on the police, especially the local police. I mean, we'll take your report, we'll do what we can, but solving these capers is still a very difficult thing to do. And the last thing I'll say as the police chief is that how do you explain to your children that what you put out there, the picture you put out there when you went to your prom, the picture of you and your friends, when it goes out to Instagram, when it goes on Tumblr, when all these things, it's out there forever. It's out there for everybody, and it's out there forever. And you never know what folks might be able to do with that. What I learned is that if I take a photo with my phone, it records somewhere on that picture, it records the location, the GPS location of where I took the photo. And while I wouldn't be able to find that out, other folks, there's a lot of folks who can actually determine it. So when you take that beautiful picture of your daughter in her prom dress, and and it goes out, there's depending on who might like the way she looks, they could find out very easily where that photo was taken and have your home address. When we do background checks on people who want to be hired as police officers, one of the things we do now as part of their background is look at their Facebook, is Google them, and you'd be very surprised at some of the things we find that these applicants have been involved in. So what you do on the internet, what you put out there, stays out there and can be used and abused in many, many ways. And again, you're going to hear a lot about that. Okay, so now I'm finished talking as your police chief. I'm going to just finish up talking to you as a dad. So you're going to get some advice tonight about, well, what can we do to protect our children? And I will tell you that all the advice you're going to get, or most of the advice you're going to get about what we can do to help our children is going to annoy your children. The fact is that you need to monitor what they are doing. And I don't care if my son, who's almost 12, when he gets to be 16, when he gets to be 17, Dad's still going to be poking his nose into what my son is doing. I do this thing now where when he thinks he's alone and he's on the computer, I will often sneak up and just come in real quick to see what's on the screen. Now, thankfully, he's still very much a little boy in many ways, and so I haven't seen anything shocking on the screen yet. I know it's coming someday, but so far he's passed the test. But the fact is, you've got to monitor what your kids do. If your children have a Facebook, you need to be their friend. You need to be able to see what your children are putting on Facebook. And I know of many kids that say, "Oh, I wouldn't let my mother, see my, I'm not let my mother be my friend because I don't want her to see some of the things we put on there." You just got to insist on it. I mean, you have to. You're the parent. Now, I guess when they become an adult, it's a little different. But you're the parent. You're the boss. They need to abide by your rules, and it's for their own safety. You monitor what your children are doing. Check on their phone activity. One of my cops who works in the computer unit, who works these cases every day, says that his children both have phones, but that on a regular basis he says, "Give me the phone," and he just looks at it. And he says the day that they say, "No, Dad, I'm not giving you the phone," because he's paying for the phone, he just takes the phone and they don't have a phone. It sounds harsh, but the fact is you're doing it to protect them. You're doing it, and there's so many ways they can get into trouble and have bad things happen that you've got to monitor their activity. You can't trust anybody on the internet until you verify, beyond a doubt as to who you're dealing with. We've had cases where people are Skyping back and forth, and there's ways that people can you can really hide who they really are, and you think you're Skyping with one person when you're really Skyping with somebody else. You've got to be the bad guy, I guess, but you've got to be tough with that. And if you start now, some of us already have, some of you who have teenagers. I'm starting young. My kids are young. I'm starting early, and they're just going to know that this is the way it is. Before they get the phone, they'll know what the deal is. And we may have arguments about it. We may have debates about it. But I will remain strong because and I don't mind sharing with them some of the stories that I hear from work, just to make them believers. So you all are really fortunate to have some of the subject matter experts that are going to talk to you in more detail about what some of the pitfalls are, some of the things that some of the cases and issues that they've seen that they're dealing with. And while I am not a subject matter expert, I do know enough that I am scared, and I do know that our kids are not safe when it comes to the internet. I've got Sergeant Ken Sanger, who's sitting in the front row.
I'll do my best. But the chief gave you the answer. I can sit here and talk for 20 minutes about violent extremism and internet safety, but he gave you the answer. It's awareness. It's awareness by children. It's awareness by parents. I have a 13-year-old daughter, and chief, let me tell you, Facebook is so 2012. Instagram is so 2013. They're on stuff like Ask.fm, which is totally anonymous, and trying to counter that, going up against drug dealers and terrorists is easy. Ask.fm and Facebook and Tumblr and Instagram and Snapchat, Twitter, that's hard. That's right. So I'm going to talk today about one of the many dangers of the internet. I think later on today we're going to hear a little bit about some of the predatory actions that take place over the internet and how the internet can be used as a tool for bad guys. What I'm going to talk about is about violent extremism and how violent extremists are using the internet to target your kids and to target you. Well, they say that a picture tells 1,000 words or 1,000 stories, so this one, I think, is the perfect example of what the radicalization path of an individual could look like. You got one kid, one lost, confused child who's out there for the taking. He's literally out there for the taking, and everybody's coming after him. Al-Qaeda's coming after him. The Nazis are coming after him. The Jamaicans are coming after him. Everybody wants a piece of this kid. They're trying to radicalize him. They're trying to make him something that he's not. And how did he get that way? Through the internet. They came at him through the internet. Who is this guy? He's a kid. A lost, confused kid who got in with the wrong crowd, and now he's going to serve about 9 years in jail for trying to promote terrorism over the internet. So when you talk about violent extremism, we try to define it as a path, if you will. And to go along this path, you have to have necessary ingredients, right? It's like a pizza. And to make this pizza, you have to have the dough, you have to have the ingredients, you have to have the tomato sauce, just like the delicious pizza we had earlier tonight. For this recipe, these are your necessary ingredients right here. A cognitive opening, a relation to a state of grievance, a community of interest. This could all lead to action. So let's take it piece by piece. What is a cognitive opening? Well, everybody at some point in their life will have a cognitive opening. That simply means the door is open. The door is open. Anybody could walk in. I'm vulnerable in a state in my life. Maybe it was through a death in the family, or discrimination, or something that triggered that door to open. So now my door is open. I have this cognitive opening. Someone's going to come walk through that door and fill my head with stuff. Bad stuff. What is that bad stuff? It's a grievance. Someone's going to come into your open door and say, aren't you mad? Can you believe this is happening to you? Can you believe this is happening to us? No, I can't believe it. So what's the next ingredient? Community of interest. So now this one person, my door was open, they came to me, they talked to me, and they said, can you believe it? So no, I can't, but I need reassurance. Let me go talk to somebody else. Hey, can you believe this? No, I can't believe it either. Well, now we have a community of interest. And what does that do? It spurs me to move. Because now I got people who think just like me. We're all angry, we're all upset about the same thing. And when someone can take that information, and take that openness and that vulnerability, and then direct you into a certain area, into a certain path, direct you to violence. This is what we call violent extremism. And it's not Al-Qaeda, and it's not violent white supremacists, it's everybody. It runs the gamut. And it starts young. This cognitive opening could happen at any age. This relation to a grievance can come later on in life. But the recruitment starts at a very early age, to where they're trying to get that door to open up. Whether or not you're trying to recruit somebody to become a suicide bomber, or you're trying to recruit somebody to extol the virtues of violent white supremacy. The recruitment is the same. The cognitive opening is the same. The grievance is the same. The community of interest is the same. They use the same pattern. We face a lot of different threats in the United States. When everybody talks about violent extremism, everybody turns to Al-Qaeda, 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 Al-Qaeda. And we are going to talk about Al-Qaeda in a little bit, but we cannot discount what's been going on here in the United States for a very long time. The violent white supremacist movement, gangs, eco-terrorism. The recruitment is the same. How do they talk to you? The internet. And when you have someone who goes down this path, and then they decide they want to act, they can act in a very violent way. This is Wade Michael Page. Last year, Wade Michael Page walked into a Sikh church, a Sikh Gurdwara, and opened fire and killed about, I think, 7 to 10 Sikh worshippers who were praying. Where was his beliefs funneled through? Where did it rise? It came from the internet. And what did he do?
Our officers were responding. First officer on scene was Lieutenant Brian Murphy. He's a 21-year veteran of the police department. A little history on Brian. He is a Marine. I made the mistake of calling him a former Marine once, and I was corrected on that pretty quickly. He is a Marine who was stationed in Afghanistan, and during his time there in the 80s, he did go to India for numerous stints when he had to go there for R&R, so he was there for quite a bit. So he knew about the Sikh community, he knew about the culture there, and so when he came to the temple, there couldn't have been a better person to go there. As he pulled into the lot, he noticed the individuals lying on the ground, went over to render aid.
It's the Sikh church here.
And immediately
this
noticed
is the
that
police
they were
officer
deceased.
first
The
on the
individual, Page, came out of the temple right about that time. Brian was making his way back to his car. We have a shield, helmet, and ballistic armor in the cars. Every one of our squads have those. And he was going to get that, and the individual came out before he could get back to his car. They looked at each other immediately, made eye contact, and both fired at each other simultaneously. The bullet that the Page fired struck Lieutenant Murphy directly underneath his chin, traveled through his throat, his vocal cords, hit his vertebrae, ricocheted down into his torso. In the video, you can see that he dove for cover. There was reports that he fell. He never lost consciousness. He went to cover and came up ready to engage Page from a direction where he thought he was coming from. He flanked Lieutenant Murphy as he was hidden behind a car, firing, reloading, dropping mags, and just firing continuously as he moved forward. He came around the side of the car. Lieutenant Murphy then was raising up to see where he was, where he thought he would come around the car. And he miscalculated. He saw him reaching up. Page saw Lieutenant Murphy reaching up over the car, fired over the hood as he was coming around, immediately striking his left thumb and the gun, taking his thumb off and knocking the gun out of his hand, so he was disarmed immediately. He then came around the corner of the car and basically emptied his magazine into Lieutenant Murphy. There were 27 shell casings found around him. He reloaded and started moving out of the lot because our second officer arrived on scene.
I hope that disturbs you. This police officer was shot 27 times. One bullet went right through here into his head. Luckily, Lieutenant Murphy survived that attack. And you saw him walking earlier in that video. But this is what happens when you have someone who's radicalized to violence, and they will act. So we try and draw a comparison between violent white supremacists and Al-Qaeda, and they use the internet just a little bit differently. Like I said, the grievances, this discussion of grievances is the same, this community of interest is the same, but the way they use the internet is a little bit different. The violent white supremacists, they use the internet to actually communicate with other people. the chief mentioned earlier about how people communicate. Maybe you think you're talking to someone, but you're really talking to someone else. But you're still communicating one-on-one. They use it to mobilize. They use it to plan. They use it to further their conspiracy, to further their crimes. I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you about how we're going to get this guy. Let's go do it. Whereas Al-Qaeda, on the other hand, they do things a little bit differently. They still use the internet to talk about the grievances. And I'll talk about the grievances here just in a second. But the difference is, they don't contact you directly. They're not going to come at you and say, I want to talk to you, or I want to talk to you. They're putting their message out there for anyone and everyone to get a hold of. Anyone has access to this. You have a computer, you have an internet, you have a phone, smartphone, whatever, you have access to these videos. You have access to what they're trying to tell you. They don't use the internet to plan. And they don't use the internet to further their crimes. It's not what they do. They're trying to recruit, and they're trying to encourage you. But not you, everyone. As an example, on the violent white supremacist side, you have individuals who use the internet to coordinate, to plan attacks. You have individuals who use the internet to plan to assassinate then-Senator Barack Obama, who was a leading presidential candidate. These two individuals were arrested and prosecuted because the way they were talking, one-on-one, even using the internet, was something that could be stopped. If you're talking to an individual, as our ADA friends will tell you, that's a conspiracy. They're talking to each other. We have a way to track that. But if I'm not talking to one particular person, there's no real conspiracy. If I'm just putting information out there for anyone to get, that's what Al-Qaeda has figured out. So when you look at Al-Qaeda and how they recruit, it's a little bit different. And the best way to explain this is to tell you the story of Rami Zamzam. Anybody here heard of Rami Zamzam? It's a very unfortunate case. Rami Zamzam was a dental student here in Northern Virginia. And his mother walked into his room one morning, wake him up for school. He had his boards that day. She opens the door and Rami's not there. So she calls one of Rami's friend's house. And the other mother picks up the phone and says, hey, can you check if Rami's at your house? He's not here. She said, well, let me check with my son, Emmett. She goes into Emmett's room. Emmett's not there either. They call another friend. Is Emmett and Rami there? They're not here either. They call the FBI. It's a missing persons report. Where did our 5 sons go? We have no idea. Well, guess what? 2 weeks later, they found out exactly where they were. They were arrested in Pakistan, trying to cross into Afghanistan to go fight for Al-Qaeda. For the next 20 years, Rami and his 4 friends, his 5 individuals right here, are going to spend in a Pakistani jail for terrorism. Now, how did this happen? The parents had no idea. Law enforcement had no idea. They weren't talking to anyone. So let me explain to you a little bit about how it happened. One of Rami's friends was on YouTube. And those of you who are on YouTube, you know that when you watch a video, there's a little space at the bottom where you can write a nice little comment. Hey, this is cool. Well, one of Rami's friends was watching a video of attacks against US forces in Afghanistan. And the friend wrote, hey, that's pretty cool. Well, guess who saw that? One of the guys who did it back in Pakistan. And he said, ah, the door is open, I've got something. So he reaches out to him and gives him a password. Doesn't say hello, doesn't say how are you, my name is Joe. He says, here's my password to my Yahoo account. Okay? What does he do with that? The bad guy writes an email. Hey, Emmett, thanks for liking our stuff. We want you to be a terrorist with us. If he presses send, what happens? It's a conspiracy. He's talking to someone. It's direct communication. And that can be intercepted. But he doesn't press send. he presses save. Does it go anywhere? No. It's in his box, right there. It never gets transmitted. But guess what? Emmett here in Northern Virginia has the password. So he can go into the Yahoo account and just open up save. And he reads the message and he says, yes, that's a great idea. I would like to be a terrorist. Does he press send? No. He presses save. And that's how they communicate. Online, over the internet. Next 20 years, these guys are going to be in jail in Pakistan. What we're seeing from Al-Qaeda is sort of this two-scale attack. It's focused on the large scale, and then try and go towards more of a homegrown violent extremism. This is important because here, these are very large attacks. It requires a lot of planning, a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort. Here, this is very easy. And this stuff you can basically learn over the internet. I'll skip some of the stuff about the narrative because I just got the bell. So what I want to do is I want to show you how they do this. Inspire Magazine. Who's heard of Inspire Magazine? I'm glad to see so many hands go up because this is probably one of the most dangerous things out there. And out of 13 issues of Inspire Magazine, this is the magazine that Al-Qaeda puts out to try and recruit people. And they put it out over the internet. And it's in English, and it's very glossy, and it looks very cool. Out of 13 issues, this is the most popular one. Anybody tell me why? Can you read this? It says, make a bomb in the kitchen of your mom. Why is that important? Because they didn't say, make a bomb in your mom's kitchen. They said, make a bomb in the kitchen of your mom. Hey, guess what? That rhymes. Something simple like that. Out of 13 issues, this is the one people remember the most. And this is the one that became a blueprint for what happened in Boston. You had two individuals, the Tsarnaev brothers, look at the internet, get radicalized over the internet, found a community of interest on the internet, and then remembered that Inspire Magazine, how to build a bomb in the kitchen of your mom. And guess what they did? They built a bomb in the kitchen of their mom. And they see a sign for the Boston Marathon. It was Saturday. The marathon was on Monday. Just like that. Within 48 hours, an attack was planned, and they carried it out. Inspire Magazine was watching. The Al-Qaeda guys that put this together was watching. And the very next week, they put out another issue of Inspire Magazine praising what he had done.
In a South London street, a man with bloodied hands, carrying a knife and machete,
This happened a few weeks later.
approaches a camera and tries to justify what has just happened.
I apologise that women had to witness this today, but in our land, our women have to sing the same. You people will never be safe. Remove your governments, they don't care about you.
He then walks back up the road, back towards the victim of this attack who lies prone in the street, a young man believed to be a soldier. The man with blood on his hands.
This is an individual, radicalized over the internet, decided to act, pulled a few knives from his drawer, walked up to a British soldier in the streets of London, stabbed him to death. When you saw this video, you saw his hands were bright red. What do you think that was? It was blood. Why did he walk up to this person who was holding a video camera and give that speech? Because he's going to use it so that they can put it on the internet, put it out in the media, so that they can get more people to recruit. Use the internet, use social media to recruit. And guess who was paying attention? Al-Qaeda. Because the very next special edition of Inspire Magazine had a special little something just for him. And the latest example of what we're seeing in the use of the internet in terrorism, just a few weeks ago with attacks in Kenya, where as the attack was happening in the mall in Nairobi, Al-Shabaab was tweeting about it. Let me say that again. They were live tweeting a terrorist attack. I'll wrap with this. When we talk about how to respond, this is all doom and gloom, right? The best way to respond is what we're doing here tonight. Taking the different pieces of the puzzle that we have to educate, to have awareness, so parents can get involved, so kids can get involved, so they know who they're talking to, so they know what's online. This type of interaction with the community is exactly what the White House, the President, Department of Homeland Security, the National Counterterrorism Center, this is what we're focused on. This is a strategy that we have in place, and we're so happy to be here tonight to share this information with you. I will be here for some question and answer afterwards, and I'll cede my time from here. Thank you very much.
10 minutes for questions now.
Okay, great, great. Any questions?
We have a mobile microphone.
Hello. I use something called K9, but I think I don't know if there's something more safer that you can put on the internet so your children don't get on sites that you don't want. Is there something you guys recommend that's better than K9?
I mean, we're not in the business of recommending private software, but I think the presentation you're going to hear later on today will talk a lot about the controls you can put in place on your computer to make sure that kids don't have access to websites that they shouldn't be going on.
We'll address that in a few minutes.
Okay, great.
So how do you protect them from what you present?
Awareness. You know, you talk about, what the chief said earlier. Know what your kids are looking at. I'll give you a prime example. One of the guys who talks about this is a guy by the name of Anwar al-Awlaki. He's a guy who preaches that you should go out and kill people, okay? But before he was preaching about this, he used to be a preacher of nonviolence. So a lot of parents would think that, okay, well, he's actually got a good message. We should let our kids listen to his tapes. But they didn't know that later on in his life, he started to change and preach violence and hatred and actually started to plan terror attacks. We took these tapes to some parents around the country and we said, this is what your kid is listening to. And we played the tapes for them and they were shocked because they had no idea, because they were under the assumption that this guy was preaching nonviolence. So part of what our campaign is not necessarily to shut down the internet, that's the last thing you want to do, but our campaign is to raise awareness. What you're going to see from our presentation, I think later on today, are some of those protections that you can put in place that can help augment the awareness. But it's got to start with the parents, it's got to start with the awareness of the kids. The secondary approach is to start shutting down access.
This is impossible. I mean, you cannot watch them all the time on the internet. They're doing homework, they're watching videos.
You're right.
It's, I mean, you're in the kitchen cooking, they could be watching something.
Spot check.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
mean, so
cheapest thing.
it's not like you can, every second they're on the internet, you're just there.
You're exactly
nothing.
right. You're exactly right. It's one of the most difficult jobs out there. But if we don't at least stay a little bit vigilant, then I point back to what happens to kids like Emerson Bergali and kids like Rami Zamzam. You know, there are signs. And if we're not aware of the signs, we're just going to let it go. And if we just continue to let it go, they're going to get further and further down that path. Remember, one of the necessary ingredients is this community of interest. Now, a lot of times that community of interest is online. And that becomes very difficult for parents, other people to interdict. But if that community of interest is here, and a good example again is the Shania brothers. They were out saying things. They were challenging people, saying some pretty radical things. They were signs that people didn't heed. And if we had heeded those signs and then started maybe an intervention plan, maybe we could have interdicted and stopped the terrorist attack. We don't know. But the point is, if we don't at least raise the awareness, we'll never have any idea what those signs could be or what to look out for. And that's what we're trying to do here, is at least raise the awareness. But you're right, it's trying to track what your kids are doing online. The chief mentioned that there's spot checks, which you're going to see from your kids when you sneak around. Is all of a sudden they're minimizing everything, right? I've heard that, I've seen it. But I go back and check the internet history. These are things you have to do. And we got two questions back here.
You said you already know there are websites which are creating communities of interest. You have identified them. So why can't you shut them down?
That's the age-old question. Obviously, if you've got something that's pretty bad on a YouTube or a Facebook and you bring it to them, a lot of times they'll self-police and take it down. However, a lot of these websites where you have individuals preaching violence, hatred, and things like that, they're very smart. These people aren't dumb. They will get right to the legal point and make sure that their First Amendment protections of freedom of speech are intact. They will preach, they will radicalize, but they will never incite violence. So if you have an individual who's saying these things, looking into a camera, putting these videos out there, legally, that's protected freedom of speech, and we can't take it down. But the other danger is actually trying to close the internet, trying to stop all this stuff. Because when you try to stop some of this type of language, it goes underground. And once it goes underground, it's almost impossible to track. These are things that we know are out there, and we can address it and we can raise awareness. We know it's out there, the National Counterterrorism Center knows it's out there, and they help us track it. And they help us raise awareness. But if everything goes underground, all of our jobs become that much harder. I think you said it was impossible. If everything went underground, I shudder to think how impossible that would be. I think we've got 2 questions in the back. Way in the back. The purple sweater, I think there was one over here, and then up here, and then
You
back.
mentioned that there are signs of people that are going into, who are getting recruited by terrorism. There are obviously some very obvious signs, but how do you differentiate between people who are just merely curious and those who are really into it without creating panic or, getting just, people who are just curious getting into unnecessary trouble?
One of the greatest misconceptions about this, one of the signs, is that people believe that as someone becomes radicalized to violence, especially in this Al-Qaeda-inspired realm, that someone who becomes more religious, someone who starts wearing a beard and hiking their pants up a little bit, that is a complete misconception. And that's one of the things that we strive to not only discuss with communities, but discuss with law enforcement and the intelligence community as well. That increased religiosity does not mean that someone's becoming radicalized. And I'll say that again so it's very clear. Increased religiosity does not mean someone's becoming radicalized. So now your question is, okay, so how do we know? Well, it goes back to this question of being impossible. It's very difficult to understand who's going on this path of radicalization to violence. It's very difficult to understand what a person's cognitive opening could be. And what are those grievances? But what helps us is the fact that the common thing that we see is that they all look for this community of interest. It's very rare that an individual will radicalize to violence over the internet and then act without ever speaking to anyone. In Boston, it was very clear. They were out there. They were speaking to people. They were acting out. The signs were there. There was a stark change in behavior. Things like dropping out of his boxing league that he was in. All of a sudden, he had pulled away from his family. He had pulled away from his friends. A very stark change in behavior is probably one of the most important keys to look out for. But again, as a parent, as a friend, as a relative, it starts with awareness. Because if you're not aware from the beginning, you won't know what that change in behavior looks like. So once you have this change in behavior, then it becomes this idea of, all right, what do we do next? Do we call the police? Do we call the FBI? What do we do if we think someone is going along this path of radicalization to violence? Their behavior's changing, they've dropped out of school, they're no longer interested in soccer, even though they were very good. So what do we do? And this is part of what this strategy talks about, is to empower communities. And that's why this strategy is so important. Not because it's a strategy by the White House, but because of its title. Empowering local partners to prevent violent extremism in the United States. And part of our job is to share this information with you so that communities could develop these plans, these ideas for prevention, intervention, and then finally maybe eviction from someone in your community who's going along this path of radicalization. But you never want to start with eviction. You want to start with prevention. You want to start with prevention, and that's what this is so important here today, because we're starting with prevention. But the necessary ingredient next is intervention, because if we don't do anything about it, then this person's going to continue along this path, and what you saw in Boston is going to be the end result. Let's go over here and then back over here. How much more time we have? I think those are the last two questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Quick questions. I'll take both of them at the same time.
It's really not a question. It's more of a statement, I guess, as a parent and an educator. I just find that now, because our kids have smartphones and because they have various ways of accessing the internet in lots of ways that you'd have no idea what they're getting on. No matter how many safeguards you feel like you're doing, no matter how many spot checks you feel like you're doing, it still seems like a almost impossible way to parent in a way. It like has taken away a lot of our control as parents. So that, I guess, is one of the issues. And the other issue I feel is just normal teenage behaviors. What's a normal teenage rebellion, and what's, you know, something that's really dangerous that we have to look after? What's a mood issue, and what's, you know, somebody, I think the thing that concerned me the most was seeing the dental student that decided to change. You know, I mean, it's one thing to have a teenager that's being rebellious. It's another thing to have a kid that looks like they're doing everything, you know, within the law, and then choosing one day to just up and leave. And so it's not really a question. It's more of a, oh boy, we have a really hard situation.
Yeah. Oh boy is right, but like I said it before, and I'll say it again, it begins with awareness. And you know, if we're not aware of what that initial behavior is, we won't know what the change looks like. We'll take this question here, and then real quick here, and then I've got to get off the stage.
So we send emails, we put stuff on Facebook or Picasa or whatever, right? And we are doing it so that some of our friends can transact information. But then in the process, somebody else lays their hands on those things in the internet, right? So how often is this how often is this done by anybody, or how often is it? Does it require a lot of you know, knowledge in internet software and related stuff? Because you know, if it is an inherent problem with the sites like Facebook or something like that, then probably the only option is to not use Facebook at all, right? Because you may monitor your kids, and your kids may be contacting the right people, not any bad guys, but the information like your pictures goes to somebody, you know, whom your kids did not even contact, right? So that was one concern that I had, because if it is something that requires a hacker with a lot of knowledge in software, then it's a totally different thing.
I mean, that's a good point. I think the discussion you're going to see after this will talk a little bit about some of those controls that can be put in place that can help interdict that. But you know, from my perspective, one of the things here is that there is no direct communication. So just because someone's putting something on Facebook or Twitter, you know, it's very difficult to track. I mean, I'm not on Facebook, but if I tell my child, you shouldn't be on Facebook, guess what? I'll get laughed out the door. Last question right here.
Do you have something like a regular awareness that children and teenagers, you know, they can attend so they don't get drawn to those kind of groups? Just like you said, we cannot control them, we cannot know what's normal behavior, what's acting out behavior, and sometimes maybe somebody doesn't show any bad behavior, and then boom, one day they change. But maybe there's something regular like this happening where children, not just the parents, I mean, maybe we're already aware, we don't need awareness, but the children to go to it and be educated more, not to get trapped and fall into those kind of groups on the internet or otherwise.
Within Homeland Security, we have numerous components like immigration, customs informants, law enforcement officers who give presentations like this all the time on child predators and internet safety.
We need to have basic common sense conversations. You know, years ago, growing up, we were always worried about the big three, and our parents sometimes would talk to us. They would talk about drinking and driving, sex and drugs, hopefully not all at the same time, but these were the 3 issues that we were talking about. But it's now expanded. It's now a 4th issue that we need to be thinking about, and that's internet safety and also cyberbullying. These are extremely important issues. And I challenge you with a few questions. Would your child post online that he or she was having a party at the house? Maybe. And then a gang might show up and wreck the house or hurt people. Would your child get into a vehicle with somebody they knew was under the influence of drugs or alcohol? Would your child get in a car with somebody who was drunk or on drugs? Maybe. Are we having these conversations? Would your child be at a party and accept a cup with an unknown liquid in it that somebody gave them, and they would drink that cup? And what would be in there? Would your child do this? Who is your child's trusted adult? Who would your child go to in a true time of need, an emergency? Who would they go to? I sincerely hope it's you. I hope it's me with my children. But the reality is it's not always us. So one of our jobs is to identify and enhance the relationship of who is my child's trusted adult or adults, and identify that person. But these are questions that need to be answered. Would your child say yes to friending somebody online that they really don't know? These are issues that are important, and we need to consider, and I'm going to end the presentation at the same place I started, which is who is your child's trusted adult, and we need to be talking about these things at the kitchen table at home. These need to be part of our conversations. We need to be role-playing. So when somebody comes up to your child at a party, handing them a cup, some man or young man that has bad interests in your daughter's going to be like, oh, I know that. You're not going to fool me. My dad tried to do that, or my mom tried to hand me that. We role-played. You want to have basic brain training for the future. You wouldn't let your child drive a car without practicing. You shouldn't let your child just have free run on the internet without understanding the consequences. So we're here tonight, and it's so nice to have the leadership of Chief Manger and the leadership of our elected state's attorney, John McCarthy, because normally you think as police and as prosecutors, we're going to react to crimes. A crime occurs, it gets investigated, and then we're going to prosecute it. But we want to think outside the box. We want to educate and empower you, parents and students. We do 25 to 50 presentations at local middle schools, elementary, and high schools year-round with the police department on internet safety, cyberbullying, drinking and driving, safe teen dating. All these presentations because we want you to be thinking as a family unit, how can I protect our children? What can we do to protect our children? It starts at home with tough conversations. I see we have some assistant police chiefs here. You don't want a police officer. We have one of our senior education facility officers, Officer Larson's here. We don't want Officer Larson to be the first person that talks about drug use with your child. It shouldn't start there with a police officer. It should start at home, normal conversations, role-playing, introducing concepts to children. So the world has changed. And you know, I've heard these two presentations. Mr. Saeed was so incredible. He opened my eyes to things that shocked me. And Chief Manger, he's just terrific. But the world has changed. It's not so simple anymore. We need to educate ourselves to stay up to par with what our children are doing. We need to talk about internet safety. You know, what are your children doing online? Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all these Instagram, all these new things that we don't even fully understand. Cell phones. If you ever want to know about private information, what's going on with your child, you know a lot of it's on text messages. Does anybody here have a cell phone with them? Does anybody have a cell phone? Can I see a show of hands? Anybody have a cell phone? Does anybody mind, can I read, may I read your text messages to everybody? No? You should say, does anybody, ma'am, can I read your text messages? No, why not? Why not? Because it'd be a violation of privacy. But you know, you're paying for your child's cell phone and the service provided. Thank you, Fred. I'm not going to read yours because I know yours is good. But the point here is the information is at our fingertips. It begins, Mr. Saeed is right on point. It begins with these conversations, with being safe, with having these discussions, with knowing what our children are exposed to, with filtering things, with understanding things. It begins with this. I don't really understand what's going on. I'm going to reach out to somebody who does. I'm going to make friends with some of my parents, some of my kids' friends' parents. I'm going to become a network. I'm going to become informed and educated. I'm going to go to netsmarts.org and I'm going to learn about what's going on. about all these different ways that our children are exposed online. Did you know that 68% of teens agree that cyberbullying is a serious problem? Nearly 43% of kids have been bullied online. 1 in 4 had it happen more than once. 70% of students report seeing frequent bullying online. Only 1 in 10 victims will inform a parent or trusted adult of their abuse. So if we're not telling, our kids aren't telling us, then this enables the bad person to go on and continue this. I think you'll like this.
Hey, I'm Eduardo. I'm a junior at NHS. I'm not anything special, pretty normal. I get good grades, and my friends are pretty cool.
What's up, Eddie?
And even my parents aren't too bad.
We love you, mijo.
I also do a little swimming. Actually, some recruiters have been checking me out. I'm hoping to get a scholarship for college, so my parents don't have to worry too much about tuition. Last week was a championship meet, and it was awesome. Our team owned it. And I set a school record in freestyle. Someone from the team decided to throw a party, and it was crazy. Everyone from school was there, including the hot girl from my science class. People were acting so crazy, I had to take them pictures, man. I may have had a little too much fun. It probably wasn't the smartest thing to take pictures, but then I got really dumb and posted them on my page. It's just what everyone does. And I didn't even think to use my privacy settings. So once I posted them, everyone could see them, and anyone could share them. I found that out when I was called to the principal's office and saw some of the pictures from my page sitting on her desk. Coach was there too, and he was really disappointed. It seems like one of my so-called friends had sent them the pictures, but which one? It could have been anybody. My ex-girlfriend, who's always mad at me for something. One of my teammates, who seemed kind of jealous. It could have even been some guy I spoke to once in the 9th grade. I guess it doesn't even matter, because I'm the one who put the pictures up there in the first place. Now my principal's saying that I violated the student-athlete code of conduct. I signed it at the beginning of the year, and it's 0 tolerance. Meaning, no more chances. I'm off the team. Goodbye scholarship. On top of that, I got suspended. I've never seen my parents so mad. Even my teammates won't talk to me. Some of them were in those pictures, and they've been called into the principal's office too. At first, I was really mad at whoever sent the pictures. What business was it of theirs? But then, I realized that as soon as I posted the pictures online, I made it their business. It was really all on me. I was 2 kinds of stupid. I was the one who broke the rules. And then I posted the pictures online. It was one mistake after another. So that's my story. I used to be this kid, and now I'm this kid. And this was all it took.
I like this video because it was a very simple way of expressing how a good young man can so quickly find himself in serious, or herself in serious hot water just by posting a few pictures inappropriate online. A few summers ago, a mother walked into a local police station here in the 5th District, and she told one of the patrol officers who summoned in a detective, "My daughter's been a good daughter forever. She's 17, she's a senior at a local high school, never missed a day of school. She's moved out. I'm not sure where she is. I think she's living with so-and-so," and she gave the name of a young man. She says another teenager. Well, it turned out that her daughter had basically run away and met some young man who she befriended online. Turned out he was 26 years old. He was in a gang, and he was HIV positive. And his goal was to infect as many young girls as possible with the HIV virus. He was very determined and very serious. And the police, the detectives, it's a very unusual case. I know you guys are thinking, well, is that attempted murder? No, it's actually under the Health General article. It's called knowingly exposing somebody to the HIV virus. And this young man, 26-year-old gang member, was using the internet to troll, to fish, to find young girls. And he had found several and had unprotected consensual sex with several of them, including this young lady who was 17 and had moved out. She actually had never missed a day of school and had a job at a local Best Buy, As soon as her bank account was empty, the $600 or so, he was done with her. But he really wanted to get her pregnant so he could leave a legacy. We prosecuted him. He was convicted of reckless endangerment, knowingly exposing somebody to the HIV virus. The penalties, as Chief Manger indicated, are not high enough to deal with this conduct. He was released after 36 months in prison, and he's out there, and he's online, probably tonight, looking to meet some young lady. He's on probation, and we're doing the best we can, but unless you have conversations with your children, he's out there, and our kids are very, very vulnerable. They're cognitively available. That's what's going on. Who is your child? This is rhetorical. Who is your child's trusted adult? And I challenge you, because we are all aging children in this room. Who is your trusted adult? I guarantee you, everyone in this room, something goes wrong every now and then, and you think, who am I going to talk to? Who am I going to reach out to? Well, you know who yours is, right? Or you know who it used to be. Well, who is your child's trusted adult? I hope it's you. But if it's not you, let's figure out who it is, and let's embrace that relationship. Internet safety risks. Cyberbullying. By the way, cyberbullying is not a crime. We're going to discuss crimes in a few minutes. It's an umbrella which has crimes underneath of it. There's no actual crime in Maryland right now called cyberbullying, but there are specific crimes underneath of it that we'll discuss. So internet risks, exposure to inappropriate content, online predators, posing personal or inappropriate information, sexting. Consequences, assault, sex assaults, diseases, kidnapping, exposure to drugs, gangs, suicide, and risky behavior. I'm time limited here, but I have so many stories to tell you about kids that wanted to commit suicide or were going to commit suicide. But we can't tell you, we don't have time for these stories, but these laws are being created to protect our children. We're going to talk about Grace's Law. It grew out of a response to a Howard County teen that killed herself recently, because somebody, in the old days, you could post something to a wall online and it was anonymous. But now if you do that intentionally, knowing it's going to cause emotional trauma, you can get in trouble and go to jail for that. So it's not just, how many people here knew that it's a crime to threaten, maybe a crime, to threaten somebody, torment them, or harassment through email? Okay, 1, 2, 3, maybe I see 6, 8, Fred's hand, 9 hands, 8 hands maybe. It's a crime to threaten people on email. Children don't know this. It's shocking. Myths about predators. They say, oh, they're all old men, pedophiles. They pretend to be younger. They abduct kids from their homes. These are myths. The truth, mostly men, 26 and older. Generally, they're not pedophiles. They rarely lie about being an adult, and usually they don't abduct. That's what scares me the most. That means it's consensual. Your kids are willingly meeting them. Who are the victims? Age 13 to 15, mostly girls, but a high percentage of boys. History of abuse, engage in patterns of risky behavior. If we don't communicate effectively with our children, they won't report what happened to them. Could you imagine your child was assaulted, or much worse, they come home, they don't feel comfortable, they don't tell you about it? So the person who did it to them can go continue to do it again, and your child doesn't report it? We need to have these conversations when our children are young. We need to grab them when we can before they become 11th graders who know everything. We need to speak with them while they're young to encourage them to tell us these things and tell their trusted adult. Julie's journey.
The internet, it's a tool that has to be used properly. You know, it's like a knife. I mean, it's very helpful, but it can also cut you. My name is Julie. When I was 13, I started talking to Tom. He didn't act or even sound like a 56-year-old man. So he was different on the computer. I knew that I wasn't supposed to be talking to him, but I did it out of a retaliation against my parents. It felt nice to have somebody who wasn't always trying to tell you what to do. It started to get more like a relationship where it went from just friends to best friends, a more personal relationship than best friends. I would instant message him between 3 and 6 hours a day. I was really upset whenever I couldn't get on the internet because I knew that he would be like, what were you doing? And he emailed me like 10 times to wondering where I was at. Then you feel like extremely bad about it. It was an opportunity for him to manipulate more. I trusted him more than anybody else. he mentioned, wouldn't it be nice if we were together all the time? And then the thought came up of running away. The night I left, I kissed all my brothers goodnight, and he was in his truck, and we just rode out. I ran away for 3 weeks. The day that I was found, we were on our way to Reno. Somebody reported us and saw our truck. I knew pretty much it's over, and I never really thought the day would come. He's gonna be in jail for 25 years. He sent a letter to me saying that it was my fault and that he was going to kill me if he ever got out of jail. I was really upset because he didn't say anything about caring about me. I didn't think of his background, and I didn't apply it to myself, and so maybe he could have done anything to me, even killed me. And so, you know, now that I'm back, I feel like there's this huge emptiness inside of me. If I could have talked to people, maybe I would have had a different view on some things. If you're planning to run away, it doesn't help solve anything. If it does anything, it makes it worse. Little things can end up becoming a big thing. I kind of wish that I never would have run away in the first place. I would never do it again.
What really strikes me there is when she says, just a moment ago, if I could have talked to somebody. You know, we talk about signs and warning signs that somebody may be being bullied or having internet safety issues are very similar to somebody that might have a drug or alcohol issue. And we've gone over these, withdrawing from family and friends, changing eating habits, changing moods, all these different things where you think, God, that sounds like they might have an alcohol or a drug problem. Well, it could be the same thing. They may have an internet problem, a bullying problem. They may be being groomed by somebody. If I had somebody to talk to, who missed these warning signs? Who was her trusted adult? I'm not saying we can change the world, but we can change it one child at a time by focusing on our own. These are challenges. We're all so busy. We all have our bills to pay. We all have our responsibilities, but this is where our focus needs to be. Would you let your child get in a car with a drunk driver? No way. You'd fight tooth and nail. Are you going to let your child be exposed to the dangers that Mr. Saeed? Aging children, when we first get involved, it's our imprint, our digital citizenship. Well, if the first picture is your son drinking a beer or your daughter half naked, that's the front page of their digital citizenship. It never goes away. We need to have some conversations with our kids. What can you do? Talk to their children about their relationships. It's a serious conversation. Most bullying and incidents come from broken friendships. We need to examine broken friendships. What's going on? So-and-so looked at my boyfriend. So-and-so wore funny shoes. Her hair's red today. It was brown yesterday. None of these things really matter. We know that. But to kids, it means everything. Look at their relationships, because you can often feel some of their tension and stresses from broken friendships. Set a policy about meeting offline for older teens. Know your child's online friends. Teach your child warning signs. Call the police. This is very important. If your daughter knew, and she was 13, and she knew that her 13-year-old was meeting some other boy at the mall, how do we know who that is? We need to tell a trusted adult. We need to be very careful about who we're meeting offline. Time online does not equate to trust and meeting somebody offline. Report the cyber tip line. Anyone who sends your child photos or videos containing obscene material, anyone speaking in a sexual manner, anyone who asked your child to meet in person. We should report these people. Facebook has a reporting site too. You should report everything that goes on, document it, save the evidence. What's bad for your children to do? Obviously, it's okay to pictures of family and friends, casual conversation. What's not okay? Certain kinds of personal information, inappropriate information, passwords, locations, schools, addresses, phone numbers. There's no such thing as being anonymous. You think you're anonymous sitting at home in your basement threatening somebody? You're not anonymous. More often than not, the police or authorities can find you very quickly, very quickly. An amateur could find you very quickly, and you think you're anonymous. Personal information can be used for geotagging. We all know what geotagging nowadays. You've got a picture, you put it up online, people can know exactly where you are based on that picture. Basically, the data usually consists of latitude and longitude coordinates, altitude, bearing, distances, accuracy data, and place names. So geotagging, you're putting a picture up, you're telling people sometimes exactly where you are. This information, personal information, can be obtained from Skype, from Google Chat, Chatroulette, Instagram. What you can do, establish rules about what your kids can share. Learn about reporting options. Help them set privacy settings. Help them create strong passwords. Talk about friends lists. Learn about these issues. Study them yourself. Go to the school-approved website, NetSmarts with a Z, and we'll talk about it in a moment, netsmarts.org. Just Google NetSmarts, and it's S-M-A-R-T-Z. Inappropriate information, pranks, offensive language, threats of violence, underage drinking or drug use, hate speech. What you can do. Establish expectations for online behavior. Again, you don't let your kid get a driver's license right away. They got to get the learners, the permit, the studying. They need to do the same thing with your children's digital citizenship. Set consequences for inappropriate posts. Talk about appropriate names. Review comments and pictures. Talk about what their friends are posting. Also, you know, I work with a lot of students, and I hear parents say, you know, it was 11:30 at night, and she was upstairs, and she's got her laptop and her smartphone. I said, what? 11:30 at night? She doesn't have a laptop and a smartphone. No, she doesn't. These things need to be in the middle of the room. These things need to be in a family room. We can't let our children stay up late at night. Think about how you feel. Anybody here with a smartphone, you get that text at 11:20 at night, and you're thinking, I think, is John McCarthy texting me? What's going on? Do I need to go to work now? It's 11:30 at night. And then I start to lose sleep. Children are the same way. We need to go back to the basics. Going to bed at a normal time. Getting away from all the media at night. What you can do, sexting. So, you know, people laugh at this, but there's a potential that one child takes a picture of another in an inappropriate photo. There's forwarding it. Somebody might consider that distribution of child pornography. We need to have these conversations. It may not be, but it could be considered that. Okay, why are kids sexting? To be funny, to impress a crush, to share with a boyfriend or girlfriend. One more. Said, did you send it? He wants a picture of her. Well, she said no. Okay, so saying congratulations, that's the right choice. Now let's see what happens if you make the wrong choice. She's already being sneaky, shutting the door. Should he show his friends?
Check this out.
Whoa! Oh man! Yo, send that to me. Come on, send that to me.
Should he distribute potentially pornography?
Look at that, boys. Check that out, boys. I had to send this to Mark. Send that out now.
You all know that's happened a lot, right? Girls or young men have sent pictures like that, and they think, what's the big deal? Well, their digital citizenship is off to a bad start. Employers, colleges, recruiters, everyone sees these pictures. And I've often heard of college recruiters, admissions, turning a laptop around and going, is that you? Because if that is you, you're not going here. So it's true. We need to be very, very careful about what our children are involved with. Consequences of sexting: humiliation, bullying, blackmail, school discipline, police involvement. What you can do: talk about the consequences. Tell them never to forward a sexting image. Discuss healthy sexual relationships. Talk about ways an image can spread online. Report it. Report it. Report it. Bullying and technology. All right, cyberbullying. Examples of cyberbullying: sending mean texts, photoshopping pictures, creating fake profiles, posting fight videos, spreading rumors and gossip. That's really the big one. It just hurts children so much, and it hurts us adults too. Posting embarrassing pictures, sending threatening or harassing comments. These are examples of cyberbullying. Differences between cyberbullying and bullying. Okay, spreads faster, wider audience, follows children home, and who did it? I remember when I was in the 8th grade, I went to White Oak Middle School, and there was a person that bullied me. By the way, is Ricky Chauncey here? Okay, Ricky's not here. So Ricky, seriously, Ricky like punked me in the hallway. I'm telling you, I was a decent kid, played basketball, got good grades, I hung out with mostly good kids. I thought life was great. He came from a difficult home, had problems, and he liked to punch people from behind. He knocked my books over, he would punch me. He just was so angry at me that he really took out a lot of things on me. But I knew where Ricky Chauncey was. And Ricky, if you are here, you're a good guy. You're a good guy. I was scared of Ricky. I was scared. I told my trusted friend at the time. And after a few weeks of this, I knew where to be. If Ricky's over there, I knew to be there. I got that. And I had a friend go have a conversation with him. I'm not sure what my friend said, but Ricky never bothered me again. But the thing is, I knew where Ricky was. On the internet, you don't know where your tormentor is. You don't know who it is. You don't know where they are. I look out here, you all might be Ricky Chauncey. A cyberbullying victim might stop using the computer or cell phone, act nervous when receiving an email or IM or text, seem uneasy about going to school, withdraw from family or friends. Remember I talked about the common themes? Very descriptive of maybe somebody with an alcohol or drug problem. Some similarities. What you can do: save the evidence, block cyberbullies, set up new accounts, talk to the school, report it, report it, report it. Here in Montgomery County, Maryland, there are online bullying reforms. If you've got a problem with bullying, you need to report it. Cyberbullying behaviors. You may see quickly switching screens or closing programs, using the computer at all hours, gets unusually upset if they cannot get to the computer, laughs excessively while online, avoids discussions about what they're doing, uses multiple online accounts. These are some signs. Why do they do it? Why do people cyberbully? Why do kids bully each other? Why do they do this? And remember, we're talking about two distinct fields when we're talking about cyberbullying and bullying, and then we're talking about internet safety. You know, cyberbullying and bullying, usually people who know each other. When we talk about Mr. Saeed's presentation on the larger global picture of bigger, dangerous things that can occur on a large scale. But we're talking more locally here when we talk about internet safety and cyberbullying. It seems like a smaller, more local problem, but nonetheless it's a personal problem that we have and we need to deal with. Why do kids do it? Thank you. To show off to friends, to be mean. Well, that's honest. To be mean. Something else. To embarrass people. For fun or entertainment. Hey, I had a case where these people basically assumed another person's identity online, had all these intimate conversations with the young man, and posted it all for everybody to see. He was suicidal, had to change schools. But they thought it was entertaining. They deserved it, to get back at somebody. I mean, these are the statistics about why they're doing it. What can you do? Establish expectations for online behavior. Set consequences for cyberbullying. Model good online behavior. Now the laws, we'll go over this briefly because we're running out of time. In the old days, misuse of telephone facilities. Some of us did it. I'd call 100 times, hang up, hang up. Is your refrigerator running? You'd say yes. I'd say go catch it. You know, that's what we did in the old days. Misuse of telephone facilities. Well, now we're talking about misuse of electronic mail. Prohibited. A person may not use electronic mail with the intent to harass one or more persons by sending lewd or obscene material. You can't harass somebody by using emails. You can get in trouble for this. It's true. Disturbing school activities, another charge. Harassment. A person may not follow another in or about a public place, or, and this is through the internet, maliciously engage in a course of conduct that alarms or seriously annoys the other with the intent to harass or alarm. But the crucial thing about harassment is, at one point you have to give a stop order. Hey, stop harassing me. And then if it continues after that, it is harassment. All right, finishing up, identity fraud happens all the time. Stalking, misuse, this is the new law, just was passed, Gracie's Law. It prohibits a person from using an interactive computer service to maliciously engage in a course of conduct that inflicts serious emotional distress to a minor or places a minor in reasonable fear of death or serious bodily injury. So what's it mean? It means that you can no longer think you're going to be anonymous, post something on a wall somewhere, and think you're not going to be held responsible for it, because you are going to be held responsible for it. Who here thinks there's privacy on Facebook all the time? Cash shows him. Good. You're all correct. Very good. Okay.
How hard is it to target kids online? Let's conduct an experiment and see. We'll start by going online and selecting a harmless chat room. How about one created specifically for youth, like this one, about music? Take a look at the list of people currently in the chat room. We'll pick one at random. How about Teresa01? Posing as a fellow chatter, we engage Teresa in a private conversation and ask her age. She shrewdly avoids giving us that information. Most online or internet service providers have user directories available to help their members identify others in the group with similar interests. Members can create and store profiles of themselves in the user directory for other members to view. While these directories can be useful, they can also make you vulnerable. We'll look for more information about Teresa by checking her member profile. We type her chat name and learn more. Good job, Teresa. She didn't list her age, location, gender, or post a picture of herself, but what does her name tell us? Is she male or female? If her brother's name is Billy Jr., what might her father's name be? If we click on the locate command, we can follow Teresa wherever she goes in cyberspace. We can also email or instant message her. After 2 minutes of searching, we have determined that Teresa is most likely a female teen. She likes basketball, music, and hanging out with friends. She has a little brother who most likely answers to Billy Jr. She has a valid email address and instant messenger account, and we have accurate addresses for both. Another place to look for information is newsgroup postings. Since we have a valid email address for Teresa, we can use it to search through these postings. Now I know how many messages Teresa has posted, when and to what site she posted them, and the text of each message. In this posting, she has posted several personal identifiers. Can you find them? They are her telephone number, a time of day when she will most likely be home, her mother or sister's name, and her email address.
Okay, I'm going to stop right here because this goes on for a few minutes and we're running short of time. This is actually an older presentation tracking Teresa, but the point still remains very strong and potent. You're not anonymous. In about 6 minutes, an amateur would know where your daughter lived, where she goes to school, where her bus stop is, who her friends are. It's just so easy that if we don't empower our children and educate them to protect themselves, we're actually exposing that. We're part of the problem if we don't teach them how to protect themselves. So this is old technology, and if you go through this, you see how quickly somebody can find it. There is no such thing as being anonymous. And I've had a number of children that are shocked when the police show up with a search warrant. They seize their laptops, their hard drives, their computers, their smartphones, and other things that they may have left in plain view that they shouldn't have. Options: install filtering and monitoring software. Consult your cell phone provider. Research options for other mobile devices. Look at individual apps. Explore built-in security features. Technology can't catch everything, so you must communicate. Now, resources, I encourage you to go online. I encourage you to go to NetSmarts. But back to this, I encourage you to contact whoever your provider is, because they can provide information to you about filters and other software applications that you can use to know what your children are up to. And remember, you're paying the bill. It's their future. We are responsible. Don't wait till it's too late. I'm so thankful that you all are here tonight, but I ask you strongly, please talk about this with your friends, your brothers, your sisters, and your neighbors. These are important issues. And I very much thank you for being here tonight, and I hope you all have a wonderful, safe evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. If you have questions, we got a little bit of a late start, so we won't have a question and answer right now, but you can talk to Steve afterward, and of course all these people are accessible, more or less. Our last speaker Tim Smitty Smith, the Youth and Senior Services Division Chief of the City of Gaithersburg, Department of Parks, Recreation, and Culture. Smitty's been with the city since 1990, serving in various roles overseeing youth programs, and presently he leads a professional staff in the oversight of this after-school programming for grades 1 to 12, including 2 youth centers, a skate park, as well as the city's summer camp program. He is also a member of the city's Education Enrichment and Community Advisory Committees, and in addition, he oversees the Gaithersburg Senior Center. Welcome to the podium.
All right. Good evening. A number of the things in this presentation Steve covered, so we're going to probably cover about 2/3 of this presentation, but I want to talk to you basically from the position of all the kids that we have in our programs, whether we have elementary programs at 5 different schools. We have 2 youth centers where we have about 600 middle school students every day. We have 350 high school students in just one of our programs at Gaithersburg High School. We run mentoring groups. Okay, good. Really quick, social media, what we think is social media. What our staff is seeing is a big disconnect between what parents think of as social media and what the kids are doing and what they think of as social media. And so our parents kind of have a narrow view. So I like this definition of what is social media. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I want to touch on those 3 words that are underlined. The kids are participating, sharing, and networking. And it can be any number of different sites, games, but they're sharing information, they're networking with people, around the world. And it depends on their particular interest. And we as parents need to really be on top of that. I have 4 children, 3 are in college now, 1's in high school, and so my wife and I have lived the last 10 years of this growth of all of these different sites, and my kids have very different interests, and so we've had to learn. My wife and I have divide and conquer. I have sites to follow, she has sites to follow, but that's what it takes to keep up with them. Simply put about why do teens use social media? Clearly, they're very socially focused. So their guards are down often because they're trying to meet new friends. There's some great sites out there where kids get to express themselves. Instagram can be a great tool because kids get to post these great pictures of themselves and the sunset. On Instagram the other night, there was a beautiful sunset, and there must have been 20 photos in the feed of this beautiful sunset that kids were posting. Another one is music. Kids are writing music and posting them on sites. There's a big site called SoundCloud. And so the kids can make their own music, post it, they have a profile, other kids can hear it and make comments. I say kids, we don't know if they're kids. And then there's other sites like this where they can actually sell their music. So my son actually is a musician, and we had to walk through this over the last 6 years or so, and he actually sells music online, but the connections that he's making through that site, he has an 8-person band from all over the country. One of the players is from Puerto Rico, and one is from Australia. And boy, walking through that with him, I'm meeting them, bringing them to our house was pretty difficult. But to their, they toughed it out. They did a summer tour this year, and all went great. But it took a lot of work as a parent for me to really feel comfortable in this kind of band. Why else do teens use social sites? Gain approval and acceptance from friends. It's fun, something to do, a support system, meet new friends, and they want to know what's going on. And the reason I bring up these things is we have to think about why our kids are picking sites they do. Why are they getting into some things? Do they need a support system, that they have a particular interest, that they don't have friends at school, so they're looking for somebody who has that interest? That lowers their guard on the sites they attend. They're on, okay? Right now, more than 3/4 of all teens own cell phones, and that number is rising. The number of teens with smartphones is just huge. And the contest to get as many apps on their phone is amazing. They just, oh, you got that? Oh, I gotta have that. I gotta have that. So this is something you want to talk about with your teen is what apps are they downloading? What are they seeing? Because an app can be deleted very easily as well. Don't forget about the game consoles, Xbox, those things. Nook, Kindle, iPod. I had a story with a woman who, she told me her daughter does not access the internet unless it's at home, but the daughter has a Kindle and spends quite a few afternoons at McDonald's with her friends. Why? Because there's free internet access. And so she's accessing the internet through there, and the mom's totally oblivious. It took, yeah, in her face, I was like, do you realize your device can get on the internet? And, oh my, she hadn't really thought about it. What we're seeing is a real digital disconnect between the parents and the kids. One survey said that 9% of teens were concerned about third parties accessing their data. Only 9%. And what we hear from the kids is, well, I'm not posting anything bad. There's no naked pictures of me, and I'm not doing drugs. But like that video we just saw, they're putting a lot of information out there, and they don't even realize it. 71% of teens have done something to hide their online behavior from their parents. And that could be something simple as minimizing, as Steve mentioned. It also could mean, deleting the browser on your computer. It could mean even turning off the security system you have, but 71%. 41% of teens say their parents have had the internet talk. Only 41% have had the internet talk. Steve mentioned, the drinking and driving, the sex talk. The internet talk is important, and we need more parents to have that talk about all the things to protect themselves online. It's just not enough parents are doing it. Funny, some of the surveys show that the parents say they've had it, but the kids are reporting they haven't had it. Or maybe they had it and they just weren't listening. Okay? 74% of parents, the parents have said this, that they don't keep up with their kids online. 74%. Now, what we see in our programs is a fair amount of parental oversight in the middle school years, and somewhere around 9th grade, it just diminishes. And I hear from the kids, well, my parents trust me. And having had 4 teenagers at one time in my house, I didn't trust one of them. Love them dearly, but in the job I've had, I've heard too many horror stories. And I'd come home and tell them the stories, and they'd be like, Dad, stop. But I think it's kept them from making some bad mistakes. Of course, the biggies. The chief mentioned that Facebook is dying, and it is among the younger people. They're trying to do different things to pull in the younger kids, but they're jumping over to Twitter. They're jumping over to Instagram. But this number here says there's I've seen different numbers, 1 to 1.4 billion users on Facebook. Didn't believe that. There's only over 7 billion people on Earth, right? I was in the Philippines last year because my son's adopted from the Philippines, and we went to retrace his story of his adoption. We got to visit his foster family. We went into a barangay, a very small neighborhood, very poor neighborhood. They hadn't seen a white guy ever. And so all the kids were running around saying, "Good day, mate, good day, mate," because they thought I was Australian. Because why would an American come through? I come into the family's home. They were very sweet. It's a cinder block home with corrugated metal roofing. And it's about 15 by 15 on the main floor. They had set up an internet cafe. And that's how they were making money. For about 25 cents for a half hour, the folks in the neighborhood could come get on the internet. This is a poor neighborhood. The kids don't have Xbox and they don't have cell phones and things like that. But they all had Facebook and they all online gamed. It was amazing. And one of my other sons was still back here in the States. And at one point, my boys were online gaming from the other side of the world. So, the people can contact your children through the internet. Twitter, just big number, 58 million tweets a day are going. And this is really on. The kids are loving Twitter because it follows, it's quick, they're musicians, the athletes, they just love it. And it's really, really growing. Tumblr's been around for a little bit, and I have a couple numbers here which are interesting, is that in 2011, the number of blogs increased from 12 to 41 million. That's a big jump in just 1 year. And that growth has continued. Now there's 142 million blogs, most of which are here in the United States. These things catch on, and then they grow really quick. And that's why the parents need to keep asking questions. What are my kids doing? What's the latest thing? Instagram. It's really big since the advent of the smartphone. Boom. 40 million photos are posted a day. 40 million. Now here's two, though, we need to stop and talk about a little bit. Vine. Vine, if you're ever familiar with the old show, America's Funniest Videos, well, Vine is America's Funniest Videos rated R or NC-17. Supposedly, you have to be 17 to be on this site. Plenty of the kids have it. There's 6-second video clips. And if you could go home tonight and on YouTube, you can look at like the top 60 videos of the year. Some of them are really funny, and they do silly things. Many of them are really, really raunchy. The language is really terrible. But the kids are getting on there because all they have to do is just say that they're 17 and submit a valid email. Jessie Smiles. Anybody know Jessie Smiles? Okay. She has 1.9 million followers on Vine. Vine just started this year, or February of this year. She went from 3,000 followers to 1 million followers in 4 weeks. In 4 weeks. Who's Jessie Smiles? Nobody. She's an attractive young lady who's funny. But her thing caught on, boom. Now she's dating some guy who I don't know. I can't follow that story. But the point here is Vine wasn't even around last year. It wasn't even around, and now it's going big. Snapchat. Snapchat, of course, is the app where on the phone where the kids can take pictures of each other. It supposedly disappears in 3 seconds, 6 or 9. They actually have videos now. I have an article on the front desk out there about how those videos, those photos, are not, they stay there. They're on the phone. The images can be pulled off that phone. And when we tell our girl groups, our mentoring groups, no one's going to admit they posted some inappropriate pictures. But when I tell them that, and our girls in our programs run it, tell them that, you can tell they freeze. They freeze. So they've been doing something online. Now, these two apps on phone are also the ones that the kids are telling us they're deleting off of their phone. So if the parent ever asks, let me see your phone, oh, no, I don't have those terrible apps on my phone, because it's really easy to go back the next day and put them on. Okay? Online gaming. This is another area of networking which is just huge. Some of the big ones, Assassin's Creed, Call of Duty, Halo. Halo is so big that they have tournaments in Las Vegas a couple times a year, and they have teams that compete against each other, and they have narrators like a football game. And the game is violent, and the language is terrible. Some of the things that happen in the audience, the reason I know this is my son loves Halo. We had a Halo party, and again, it was like a Redskins thing. It was like, there was tailgating going on in front of my house practically. But again, this is a forum where they're meeting people. And who do you know? You don't know these people. Virtual world sites. RuneScape is one that a lot of younger teens are doing. RuneScape started, it's like a medieval setting, and the kids go on quests, and there's little battles. Pretty tame. However, the next two sites are not. Second Life, their slogan is, will you be naughty or nice? And they have a young lady dressed like an angel in a very sexy outfit, and one in the devil outfit, very sexy. And this is the choice. Are you going to be naughty or nice? Now, they do have a teen section, and they have one for 18 and above. But now we're talking about a much smaller number, but when the kids get involved in these, they're on that. It has to be through a PC because it's too slow to go through your phone. But the kids are on there for hours. The one that's younger is IMVU, same type of thing. Their slogan, escape, IMVU. And There's a girl online on YouTube, it's called Gamer Girl, and she posts every week how girls can play a game and get interested in it. And I watched her describing IMVU, and she's like, okay, I have 20 choices of what a girl looks like. They're all slutty, and there's no way to dress them modestly. Oh, great start. And that, okay, this is an area, and the kids can be 13 to get on that site. And of the 50 million users, half of them are outside of the United States. Now, again, 50 million compared to 1 billion, we're talking about a smaller segment, but we're seeing it. Fandoms. Now, we talked about the connection. Why do these kids open up to different people? Here's another area, is fandoms. Fandoms, Whovians, kids who follow Doctor Who, tributes, they follow the Hunger Games, Potterheads, Harry Potter, the Directioneers. Well, New Direction is really big. So, so these are common interests that when the kids go online, the kid can say, oh, Doctor Who, episode 3 of last season, that was fantastic. And there's an immediate connection to that person. And it can be good, and it can be very dangerous. Homestuck. Real quick, Homestuck is an online site where there's a story being told. It's like 7,000 pages long, and it goes through about 3 months on and takes a couple months off, and they need to raise money. But there's a lot of kids who follow, or they're in the fandom. They still want to be involved. Bronies, same thing. Bronies are guys who like the new show My Little Pony. They had 8,000 participants at the Baltimore Convention Center last summer. Okay. So some other areas. There is a contest your children are involved in online. Who has the most followers or friends? I've literally seen kids, you're like, what? You only have 200? I have 400 followers. So what they've done is then they lower their guard when someone friend requests them because they want to get their number up. That number is important because, you know, the other kid looked down on them. Who has the most comments on a post? This can be brutal. If your friends, every time they post something, they're getting lots of comments and responses. Your child posts something and there's nothing there, and that's hard. And again, you know, I've seen the teasing, you know, like, oh, you're not that popular, okay? A couple of things is, who do you follow? The musicians, the movie stars, etc. Because, you know, it seems like a lot of the kids are just trying to push the limits. They don't even know some of these artists, but they'll like them from their page, so their friends will think that they're really crossing a line, okay? And then you come to find out the kids don't even know, all right? We see a lot of just pushing the limits, you know, until their parents find out, if their parents find out. A lot of our kids, their parents really just aren't engaged. Tonight on the way over here, I ran into 4 high school students who I know well, and I asked them about, you know, when did your parents talk to you, and what was the connection, you know, over the years? And basically they all said, one of them still has some parental oversight, but the other 3 said by 9th grade their parents weren't involved at all. So, riding a bike. Why do I have pictures of riding a bike? When you teach a child to ride a bike, in this first picture, you know, kid probably started on a tricycle, they've moved up to this part where now the dad's holding the back of the bicycle. Then in the next frame, the child's successful, I know how to ride a bike. Hey, have you been on this site? Have you done this? They don't ask the tough questions, and you need to. Again, once isn't enough. Keep asking the kids. In that section, don't freak out. If your child tells you they did something you're not happy with. Because I hear that from the kids all the time. If I tell my mom, they'll take away my phone, they'll do this, they'll do that, you know. So if your child does confess something to you you're not too happy with, obviously there might be consequences to it, but try to make the consequences appropriate for what they did. Because there's this fear of, if I tell them, it's over. And I tell you, my kids have probably had that fear because, again, in my job, I'm a hammer. You know, what I've seen, unfortunately, my wife has to be my balance on these things, but don't freak out. Get informed. You join the same sites as your child, use the same apps, but stay silent. One of the girls told me the other day how she just dropped off Facebook because on her birthday, for the last 2 years, her mother has posted a picture of when she was a baby, and she was naked, and there's her cute little bum, you know, and I love my little girl. And of course, this girl is horrified. You know, it also comes to knowing your child. I have, 4 children. 3 of them have Facebook, and 2 of them, I just stay quiet. Occasionally I like something, I don't post something, I don't comment. The other one, she posts to me all the time. So you have to know your child, where they're comfortable with it. Remember, you keep asking other parents when you're at soccer games, when you're at PTA meetings, ask other parents what their child is doing. And then Google it every month. What's the hot thing this month in the internet world? Because, Vine's only a couple months old. We have no idea what's coming in 3 months. We have no idea what the next app's going to be, what the next big thing, because it's coming. Just real quick on a few of these, know the privacy settings and use them. I'm stunned about how many of the girls in our programs don't have their privacy settings done. Again, the communication. I want to tell you a quick story about my daughter. She's at college. She's a bright girl. We've had this talk. She posted the other week about how her sister wrote her a letter. And it was so sweet. And it made her cry. My younger daughter wrote the thing saying, I miss you, and all that kind of good stuff. So my daughter's away at college and says, oh, that letter was so wonderful. I'd like to get more. So if you write me a letter, I'll write you back. Here's my address at school. All the way down to her room number. I'm texting her right away going, what are you thinking? And she said, oh, I didn't think about that. Well, see, again, that comes down to the communication and constantly talking, because good kids do make mistakes like that. They put out information they shouldn't be doing. Be a good example. Parents do this all the time. We're out to dinner. We're going on vacation. What are you telling people? We're not home. Parents do that all the time. Here we are. We're gone. Our house is empty. At the same time, we're telling our teens not to show their location. So, think about what you're doing. If your child's younger, and you can start on the ground level, use a contract, use an agreement. I put a couple samples out on the table outside. Work it out for yourself what's appropriate. It's just like the negotiating bedtime. Over the years, you work on what bedtime is. But that way you have something written from the child saying, oh, you said you would do this, but you didn't, okay? Someone mentioned before about security devices. The one that I tried all kinds of filters at first, and it just slowed the computer down. It didn't work. But I finally went with a company called System Surveillance Pro. And there's many like it. It's called a key logger site. And what it does is it tracks every keystroke that your computer does. And every 30 seconds, it takes a screenshot. And so, now it does take up a lot of memory, so it means about every 3 days you have to go back through this. So we put this in place with our kids, and so they knew every stroke was going to be looked at. So what did they do? They stayed, they knew what that was going to be like. And of course, my wife and I, there's no way we could look through all of this. And as time went on and they got older, we decreased it. The same software, and there's lots of softwares like this that will turn off your router at night for you. Talk to your internet provider. There's other apps out there. There are apps for the phone that will, there has to be a security code so the app can be downloaded. That way, if you know the security code and your child doesn't, they can't download those apps you don't want them to. Again, it's up to the child, the age of your child, and so. And many of these, Steve covered, but the one I want to talk about real quick is think before you like. So people, even if they've been very good about who their friends are, and they got good security, and privacy settings, they go to somebody and they like a photo. I did this recently. Sorry. One more. I was in the Philippines. Met a guy. He posts wonderful pictures of the Philippines every day. And I started liking him on Instagram. Next thing you know, I had 50 followers on my Instagram who I didn't know. And so, because it's a lot with Instagram, It's a little bit harder to get rid of it. Last thing, I also put the user agreement for Snapchat out on the table out there. If you're interested, right in their own user agreement, it says, we may not be able to delete all these photos. Little disclaimer they have, whoops. And they also say, like many of these updates on apps, every time you get an update, there's a new user agreement. Not every time, but a lot of times it is, and how many of us never read those? I know I don't. All right? So my time is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. I'm so sorry we got a late start, so we ran a little bit over, and I don't want to keep you any longer. So our speakers will be here, and also Seamus is here from the NCTC if you had any other questions about the online violent extremism recruiters. I wanted to thank you, ask you to please fill out the evaluations for any information you want to tell us about upcoming programs or topics you'd like to cover. And again, we hope that you appreciated the information and you learned something